What if I were to suggest that you play a key role in the awakening world? And that you are watching this because you have heard the call. We can start right now by opening our hearts and minds. Welcome to the awakening world.
Good evening, everybody. I am Scott Thomas. I'm also known as Love Coach Scott, and you are watching The Awakening World, our Wednesday night show, and I am very excited. You know, we've been doing this show for 4.5 years now, over 600 episodes, but every now and then I'll have a group of guests that I cannot wait to hear what they have to say and to see what it's like as they meet each other, because we have three extraordinary women, all of whom I know well, so I know that they're brilliant and wonderful, but they have never met each other before. So I think we're going to see some real magic. And I will briefly let you know who's going to be with us. We have Dr. Kat Lewis coming back. We met her just recently as part of the International Space Federation show that Reverend Jeffrey helped put together. Thank you, Jeffrey. And we've got Liz Connors coming back. She's been on the show before. And she is going to be talking about solar flares. You've all been reading probably that the biggest solar flares in a very long time are happening. What's that mean? How does it impact us? Well, Liz is going to let us know all about that, plus more. By the way, Dr. Kat, I call her the spiritual scientist. That's my moniker for her. Really does bring her understanding of that together in a beautiful way. And I'm really happy to bring on for the first time on The Awakening World, Rianna Skywalker, Kin 13 Oracle, who is going to help us understand all about Mayan cosmology. And then we will have a very dynamic conversation, no doubt. But as always, to get the show off to a rousing start, there he is.
Yes, in the cosmosphere, as you can see. No, I did not take this photo behind me, but welcome all our Facebook and YouTube viewers from now and into eternity, and welcome to our streaming partners, especially at the moment, Humanity's Team. Thank you so much for carrying us, and I'm going to play a little surprise song about this extraordinary world that we live in. Many of you know it, so let's just get some things clicked here. This one and this one. I can't
coincidence once prompted you to say, pride will tear us both apart. Well, now pride's gone out the window, crossed the rooftops, run away, left me with the vacuum of my heart. And what is happening to me? Crazy, some would say. Where is my friend when I need you most? Gone away. But I won't cry for yesterday. There's an ordinary world somehow I have to find. And as I try to make my way to the ordinary world, I will learn to survive. Papers on the roadside tell of suffering and greed. Fear today, forgot tomorrow. Here beside the news of holy war and holy need, ours is just a little sorrow told. But I won't cry for yesterday. There's an ordinary world somehow I have to find. And as I try to make my way to the ordinary world, I will learn to survive.
Let's all twinkle, beloved brother Omashar, for that beautiful, beautiful song.
Yes, and I think we all know who that was by. There's like definitely a throwback, but it's just got such a beautiful structure to it. And for some reason, they were shouting at me, play it for this show. And I go, no, no, no. But I ended up surrendering, and there it is.
Oh, it's fantastic. And I'm going to bring up one of our very favorite people who was just dancing. It's Lynn's 80th birthday today.
Oh, happy
birthday, Lynn. She's been with us. She and her partner Leaf have been with us from the very, very beginning, going all the way back to Saturday Night Alive for the Global Peace Tribe, coming to us from Justine, California. And it's your 80th birthday, Lynn. So I want us to all just send her absolute love and joy and blessings, that whatever you want to have take place in this next cycle around the sun, maximum grace for Lynn, best of health, great joy, and cooler weather. Because I know it's been very hot where you two have been. And we love you so much. And I'm just going to briefly bring up Rianna. What does this particular year signify? I noticed she said something in the chat box about it. And you need to unmute. Rianna, you need to unmute.
Okay. Happy birthday
Today, you begin a year in the archetype of white electric wizard. So you were obviously born in the magic of wizard at some point. And this year, it's about activating that magic for humanity rising, because we're in the wave of human. So we'll be looking forward to seeing what wisdoms come through for us, through you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rihanna. Nice little homeopathic dose of what you have to look forward to, Lynn. And thank you so much for being with us. And I can't wait to see what takes place during your next 80 years.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just, what you said also about the year ahead was exactly how I'm feeling these days. Absolute, only love, light, ascension. It's going to be fantastic.
All right. Thank you. That's beautiful. We love you much. And thank you for being with us. And we love watching you dance every show now. That's become a really, really fun part of the awakening world, is watching you getting up and dancing. So thank you so much, Lynn. Much love to you. Well, I am going to introduce Dr. Kat Lewis. And I've really enjoyed conversations with this woman. She's brilliant. And she's all about using the principles. Here, I'm going to put her up. She's more interesting to look at than I am. She uses the principles of functional medicine and the Vedic science of consciousness to help spiritually minded people enhance their mental, emotional, and physical health. She understands that a healthy body is essential for achieving higher states of consciousness. And believe me, Dr. Kat is all about achieving higher states of consciousness. So she's going to help us learn how to come into coherence with the unified field, and that the boundless energy that is our true self and the source of our vitality and health. So Dr. Kat, thank you so much for coming back so quickly and being on our show again.
Well, thank you for having me.
You know, we were talking in a conversation about the unified field and how science and spirituality are merging, and that love is kind of the frequency. So what can you help us to understand scientifically? What do we know about the unified field from a quantum science point of view? And how does that correlate with oneness theory, or the idea that all there is love?
Okay, so it's really fascinating because there's so many parallels going on in reality, all the new discoveries that we're making. So we kind of just realizing that there's a fourth state of water. I don't know if I'm sure most of you have heard this, right? So we all know solid, liquid, gas as a state of water, but there's actually a fourth state of water, and it's called easy water. They've named it that, but really it's like a gel-like water that exists inside our body. And, we've been focusing on the molecules in the body, all of the material things in the body, but not what's always been there. So if you read any biology book, when you open up the first page, they're going to talk about how important water is for life, but then it's not really focused on anymore throughout the book. So it's the thing that's everywhere in the physical body. We're 99% water by molecules, but we don't focus on it. And the parallel with that, because we're finding out now the importance of water in the physical body, that it's really the structure of water in the physical body is so important for all the functions in the physical body. But the parallel with that's something that's ubiquitous, but we ignored. It's the same thing with the unified field. The unified field is this empty space that we exist in. We live in a mind. And because we experience empty space, right? Our human senses don't allow us to experience what's actually here. But the amount of energy that's actually here in one sugar cube volume of space is infinite. They renormalized it, and it's basically 10 to the 90. It's 10 with 93 zeros behind it. That's how much energy is in this seemingly empty space. And because we don't experience it, because our senses don't allow us to, we think it's empty. And so all we've been doing is focusing on the material world and not this mind that we live in that we're non-separate from. Like we can, so in my mind, what's happening in the world today is we're going through this huge transformation where we're realizing that we live in a mind. We live in the unified field. And it's infinite energy and infinite intelligence. And the new science, the new physics by Nassim Haramein at the International Space Federation, he just published a paper in September of last year that is showing, he gives exactly the physics of how this seemingly empty space is really light, right? So photons or units of light that's then creating the material world and also creating us. So we're non-separate from it. And when you consciously connect to it, so we can't ever be separate from it, but we can have the experience of being separate from it. And when you consciously connect to it, you start experiencing more of what reality is. You start experiencing more of how alive the universe is. But we're just really kind of waking up to this after thousands of years. So, and when you connect to it, what you'll notice, and you have a huge portal to it right in the center of your chest. And when you connect to it, you'll notice that the vibration of it is unconditional love. And when you bring your awareness to it, it's peace. You feel peace immediately just by dropping your awareness down into your heart area. And it's not the physical heart. It's the volume of space, or it's really the portal to the unified field, which is all around us. Does that make sense? I call it the spiritual heart. That's an old term for it. But it's fascinating to watch what's going on in the world today, because there's so much research on heart-brain coherence. And that's what happens when you drop your awareness down into the heart area and you sense and feel the field there. You're in touch then, you're consciously in touch with the unified field. When you do that, your brain waves match the heart waves, and that's called heart-brain coherence. And you benefit from that because this energy, this field, is the source of all information. Information is knowledge, and energy. Information is energy. It's the source of your physical body. And when you consciously connect to it, you benefit. You become more intelligent. You become more wise because you start perceiving. It's the I am state. It's the mind of the universe. So you start perceiving things from a more a holistic perspective. So you no longer divide things and separate things. You view things as a whole. So it's unity consciousness. And what I believe is really happening in the world today is that we're seeing the effects of having not understood that. Right? When we don't consciously connect to the field, when we don't really understand that we're in this mind and that we are connected to everything, then we behave in the ways we've been behaving. And I feel like this is I feel like this is the transformation we're all going through. And until we have to, just like when anyone does any sort of individual transformation, they have to look at the issues, right? So they have to first recognize that they have these belief systems that are getting in their way, and how they've created their life based on these ideas in their head. And we're doing that on a global scale too. So we're seeing how we behave when we don't realize how connected we are, and that we're all part of this mind of the universe. Does that answer your question, Scott?
It's a great start. It's a great start. I'm going to read a couple comments from our audience, and then I've got another question for you. Susan Bloomquist writes, these are new concepts, so most of us are just listening. Jeffrey reminding us of how to join spacefed.com, and I'll take us there later today, Jeffrey. George Noble writes, this is why the ETs have told us there is no shortage of energy in our world. I hope they soon help us discover how to tap into this without nuclear power. And I'd love for you to maybe respond to that in a moment. Liz writes, there is no shortage of anything, only beliefs, which there are many of. And then Susan has a question. Is what you're saying powered by mathematics?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So that paper, I mean, Nassim Harameh has published a number of papers over the, I don't know how many years, maybe close to 40 years that he's been studying this. So yes, this is all analytical physics. He has experiments to prove what he's saying. And you're seeing it actually across many different aspects of science. So AI, people who study AI, cognitive scientists, neuroscientists, there's a lot that are starting to realize, and many have over the last 100 years as well, started to realize that we live in a mind. We live in and consciousness is the ground of all being. So it's like this, if I can put it in a way that is more a practical way to understand. So when you dream at night, I always use this analogy, the dream analogy, because it's actually not an analogy. This physical reality is as etheric as the dream world. It's just that you have to be in a certain state of consciousness in order to experience it that way. There's a whole science behind that, but I don't know if we have time for it tonight. But so when I just lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
You're doing the analogy about dreams, about to understand this.
Yeah, I know, but I forgot why I was going in that direction. What was your original question?
We're talking about mathematics.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know where I was going. Sorry, I got it. So I'm reading the field. There's interesting biochemistry or biophysics around that too. So anyway, about what just happened where I lost that memory. I lost the connection with the field. So when you're in a dream and you're having the dream and you think you're the dream self, you don't know that there's a greater reality and a greater version of you beyond the dream, right? You believe you're the dream self. So you're limited by your beliefs. And if you don't know that you're actually in a dream, there's a more fundamental reality that you're unaware of. And that's what's happening here too. There's a more fundamental reality, and it's us as pure consciousness that is beyond this physical reality that we live in. So this physical world that we live in is called space-time. Okay, so I might say that word, but so when I say that, I'm referring to space and time, the physical world that we inhabit. But there is a more fundamental reality beyond that, and that is your consciousness, you as without a physical body. And you can actually experience yourself as some of that. You can expand into that and still be really fully present here in this reality. So this is what the physics that Nassim is describing is showing us. And it's showing how that mind that he calls it's called the unified field. It's where mind and matter meet. And his physics is showing how that mind, that the unified field is creating the material world and is responsible for all the forces that we experience in the physical world. So, it's a huge realization because one, it's unifying the two fields of physics, the physics of the small stuff and the physics of the large stuff. It's unifying science and spirituality. It's unifying our hearts and our minds. It's unifying humanity because when this information is really integrated into our understanding, when we really understand this, we will stop harming each other. There won't be any more war. And I even venture to say that there won't be any more disease because all of these things are ways in which we learn through. And when you start identifying as that consciousness that's always here, it's you. It's just you not thinking you're just human. It's you understanding who you truly are. You are light, and that light will shine through more of the particles, the atoms that are creating your physical body. And when that happens, you don't have disease in the body anymore.
Wow.
And again, that field, the feeling of the field is love.
Hmm.
And that energy is creating you.
Susan Bloomquist writes out that this sounds like Ubuntu. Jeffrey is providing wonderful links for us to tune into to see what you're talking about with Nassim. George Noble writes, it's great to have you back again, Dr. Kat.
Thank you, George.
And
Great to be back.
Omashar writes, yes, when we realize that everything starts with consciousness, we'll be one step closer to home or Om. Yeah.
That's right.
So Susan asks, so are you saying that we can all access this field,
Yes.
feeling love from the heart?
Well, so you're never not separate from, you're never not separate from the field. You're in it. It's inside, it interpenetrates you. So think about a dream. So when you're in the dream, you think you identify as the dream self, right? The physical body that you experience in the dream. But really, you're the entire container of the dream. The dream is occurring inside your consciousness, right? Well, that's what's happening here too. And that consciousness is right here. It's just that we can't see it, right? So the light that is actually making up all the pixels in our reality, the image of physical reality, those pixels are what Nassim calls them Planck spherical units, but in other words, photons. Those photons are billions of times smaller than a proton. So when you look at this empty space, you don't see them, right? But they're here. And as you raise your level of consciousness, and what that means is as you raise your understanding, as you expand, I'll say that, as you expand your understanding of what reality is and who you are, and how you do that is by reconditioning your mind. You have to start learning this information. But as you expand your understanding of who you are and what reality is, you start becoming more, your senses start awakening, your inner senses start awakening, and you start to feel how alive the universe actually is. So that takes getting the knowledge about how reality really works. And what I used was the Vedic science of consciousness. To me, it's a complete teaching because it not only describes what reality is, but what's also important is to understand who you are as that greater consciousness, but also who you are as this individual ego consciousness or human consciousness, and the relationship between the two. Because you can understand that you're a greater consciousness, but if you feel like the human body, you need to understand, how do I expand into that part of me? And that's a process, at least in my experience. It doesn't happen overnight, because we came in and we were conditioned by our parents and society, and nobody knew we were living in the mind of the universe. They didn't know. So they had separation consciousness, and they taught us separation consciousness. So now we're working with that conditioning. That's what our conditioning is. And so that we act out that in the physical reality, and we're getting to see the consequences of that. But we're changing, we're moving into a whole new reality. And the physics of the International Space Federation is really going to help that.
I so love this conversation. And, you know, it's true. We are moving from the illusion of separation into both scientifically and spiritually understanding that there really is just this one ever-changing unified field. And as we understand that, it helps us to intellectually grasp the spiritual principle of oneness, the spiritual principle. So whether it's Jesus saying, do unto others as you would unto yourself, that's one way of looking at it. And there's 100 different ways, 1,000 different ways that we've been taught, to recognize that we're all each other, and we need to respect ourselves and each other.
Can I show you an image? Is it possible for me
Yeah,
to share?
yeah.
Okay.
You can
So I just created this the other day. Can you see it?
Yes, all that is.
Okay,
Wholeness.
so I drew it separate from each other to just show so that you could see the what's happening, but it's really all on top of each other. So it's like this. That all the radio waves are right here, right? The TV, the information from the TV, the TV channels, the radio waves, it's all right here. It's all on top of each other, but you don't experience it, right? You don't experience all this energy. So it's the same. This space-time, it's kind of like this. It's like, Bashar uses this. Do you guys know, you are familiar with Bashar? So he uses this analogy. It's like steam, liquid, and then ice. So it's like all of them are on top of each other. So it's like the steam crystallizes to the liquid, then crystallizes to the ice, right? So this light, that unified field, is here right now. It's all around you. And the way you become aware of it is to put your attention on it. That's the key. You have to use it. You have to put your awareness on it to utilize it. And what's really fascinating is, yes, the other question about tapping into this energy, for this free energy. So many scientists have done this over the years. A lot of it's been suppressed. There's a documentary called The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It by Stephen Greer, who covers a lot of that. Nassim Haramein, the International Space Federation, they're actively working on this. So they are, I don't know exactly what technologies. Well, they have created one, the art crystal. So you can buy this crystal that you wear on your body that helps you entangle with the field more. You can put it in your water. They have water bottles where you can put it in the water bottle, and that structures your water. But yes, they are tapping into the field. So that white light, it's all here right now simultaneously. And how you activate it for yourself is to put your awareness on it. And there's a huge portal to it right in the center of your chest, and what I call the spiritual heart. And that's why Heart Math Institute is doing a lot of research on this, on the heart brain coherence, because when you drop your awareness there, you tap into it. And then you match, the brain matches that vibration. And that field of energy carries information. Information and energy are one and the same. So when you drop your awareness there and you spend time there and you develop a relationship there and you stay aware of yourself as that energy, and it's not just here, it's everywhere, it's all around you, right? It's you, and the physical world and the physical body are inside of that. When you are consciously aware of it, you start, that information just starts, there's an information transfer, and you'll know things that you didn't learn somewhere, and you'll have your perceptions about reality will change. You'll look at things from from God consciousness, from the universal mind. So it's more whole, it's more holistic. You stop separating things out and judging.
There are questions flying in. We are going to have a Q&A period afterwards, or if you want, you can answer some of them in the chat box. But I want to bring on, because we have two more guests to hear from. So we're going to have much more Dr. Cat, I promise. Dr. Cat, thank you for getting us off to a great start. And as you'll see, there's already a lot going on in the chat box, stimulated by all that you've shared. But I want to bring up our other guests. And next up is going to be Liz Conyers. And Liz is great. I've gotten to know Liz on a personal level, but also professionally. and she's all about soul guidance. Her superpower is helping us to learn what our superpowers are. And she works with individuals, group coaching, unique events. She's very much on the ascension path. And definitely subscribe to her Instagrams because she really posts some very cool stuff on IG. But she's with us now. And I know, at least for starters, she's going to share with us about what does this all mean, Liz, about the biggest solar flares in a very long time. What's that all about?
Right. So I just want to say, Kat, I think I'm in love. You're speaking my language. It's all the stuff I try and talk to people about, and I explain to my clients and how to navigate it, how to live it, how to cultivate it. And so it's really wonderful to know that I live close to you and we can have
let's get
more
together.
potentially. So first things first, we're going to talk about solar flares. This is a bit of a dense conversation as well. I'm going to start by saying I am not a scientist in this, I'll say this dimensional realms, approval factors. However, I am an alchemist, I am an oracle, and I am an empath. And for whatever reason, Source God has given me a darn near perfect physical antenna and awareness for these solar flares and activities. So let's start with the basics and terminology. This is really just for fun because I want to highlight that when living from the cosmic heart, which Dr. Kat mentioned, losing the mind piece is often great. So you do not need the science or the technical terminology to trust your inner wisdom or your physical vessel and intuitively do what you need in order to integrate and benefit from these amazing cosmic events. But I think for the purposes of speaking on this topic, it'd be good for you to know a few basics. So solar flares, what are they? Solar flares are the result of magnetic energy stored in the sun's magnetic fields being released in a sudden explosion. Coronal mass ejections, you'll hear me talk about, CMEs. This is the basically the energy given off by a solar flare. It gives off emission that goes across the whole electromagnetic spectrum, at the same time gives off energetic particles. It's millions of times greater than a volcanic eruption on Earth, just as an example. Solar energetic particles, or SEPs, some you might hear them termed as cosmic rays as well, are high energy charged particles originating in the solar atmosphere as and as solar wind. And I'm reading this because, again, I'm not a scientist. I mostly know this all through the field, through my downloads as an oracle, through my empathic and my connection with all that is. Exactly what Kat talked about is how I live. And so the SEPs will then launch protons, electrons, and heavy ions and energies that go into the Earth's atmosphere, into the Earth, and into us. There is a ranking system you will hear me talk about and others talk about. So scientists classify solar flares by A, B, C, M, and X. X class being the most intense. The KP index is a ranking system for geomagnetic storms that uses the integer from 0 to 9. So for example, we recently were in a KP7 last weekend, and a 9 is the highest. So just to show you, if you were feeling some things last weekend, or you thought you had a head cold or a flu, you were feeling the cosmic energies. So solar flares and spirituality. So this is kind of more probably what I'll talk about today, because it's a very profound thing that's happening, that many believe is happening on our planet now, that these solar flares are erupting now to aid in the great awakening of the Earth and to aid us, its inhabitants, healing, holding, and raising the Earth's frequency and ours as well, basically turning us into diamonds through pressure. The concept is that these pure, powerful cosmic energies are such a high frequency that anything that is not unconditional love, which is actually also truth, cannot remain and will bubble up to be alchemized. So that's like as quick of a download I can give you on solar flares, like what they are, what the basics are. So now let's talk about what I think is the fun part, and what's on right now. So right now, like I said, last week we had kind of an epic, like huge thing that happened, which is 2 X-class solar flares only 24 hours apart. And these were a I believe it was 7.15 and a 9.12 or something like that. Previously, we hadn't hit that many X classes in 1 week. And just to give you an idea, typically an X-class solar flare will launch a collective timeline shift. This is a timeline shift for everyone on Earth. So X-classes are kind of a big deal. And I'm also an expert in timelines and timeline frequencies and timeline jumping. I always know when I'm having one, and I know probably when you're having one. So it's something that I feel, and in my reality, it happens all the time. So, so these X classes pretty much, I encourage you to take note of the minor details in your life when you hear an X class has happened, because I guarantee some very weird little glitchy things might be happening. Okay, so the other thing that happened last week is there were also, like, I don't know, maybe 13 or so M class and several C class. So it wasn't just those X classes that were happening. And then add in an eclipse and the moon activity that we had last week. It was a game changer. And so that's kind of like the haps on what's going on. And until, let's see, this week, just in the last few days, we've now had more X-class solar flares. Now, these were more like 1 or 2. So compared to those whoppers at 7 and 9, these are baby ones. But this isn't normal. Like X-classes on the scale, again, are the highest. It's more common for us to experience Cs and not even M's. So to experience even 1s and 2s in a less than a 2-hour period, which is what happened last night, is kind of, again, still a big deal, even though it's going to feel easy compared to last week. And we are still in a KP7 storm, which is basically the aftermath of all of this once it comes through the Earth's magnosphere or whatever. Magnetosphere, there we go. It feels more X-Men, that terminology. We are in the times of the superheroes, I say. All right, so the other thing that I want to just note, so what does that mean for you? So physical implications. So this is where I sound like an infomercial, or I sound like a drug commercial. There can be so many symptoms that you might feel, and this is going to depend on a series of things about you, what your DNA is, how grounded you are, how hydrated you are, how much density you carry in your body, not only emotionally, but in your organs, like physically. How are you generating fast in your molecular structure, or are you generating a little slower? It depends on so many things. Are you an empath? How in tune with the cosmos are you? Are you doing sun salutations? Are you, asking to connect to the sun every day, or the moon, or, vice versa? So there's so many things that go into how and why you feel this. Also, children, especially under age 10, feel this a lot more than your average adult. So that's something I just want to remember to note for the parents out there. Okay, so here are some symptoms. If you are really, you process, also karma. How much karma you have to process is going to play into this role. How big of a family you have, what your mission is, how much have you taken on as a soul. So symptoms, you could feel euphoria. You could feel invincible. You could feel dizziness. You could start to have superpowers. I'm not kidding you. I have seen it all, folks. You could feel energized. You could feel restlessness, anxiety, anger, neurodivergence, where you literally cannot meditate or finish a thought before you're on to the next thing. I say just let yourself do it. It's kind of amazing. Try it. Don't judge it. You could have heart palpitations. If you look at when these solar flares are really going off, the number of people admitted to the hospital with heart issues goes way up. You ask you ask many nurses about full moons and cosmic cycles, and they will tell you some things. Back pain, stomach woes, headaches, head colds, flu-like symptoms, fatigue, joint pain. And what I will tell you, tingles, itchiness, what I will tell you is that this is all connected, as Kat mentions, to what we are healing and what chakras are being worked on in the astrology. It's all connected. It's all connected to placements of the planets. I mean, it's all so perfect. It is absolutely amazing. So other implications that aren't physical, technical malfunctions, crashes, GPS, just random things like text messages disappearing, your videos not posting on social media, like email glitches, like just it runs the gamut. It plays so much in all of the things that are working through frequencies. Communication interruptions, timeline jumps, quantum shifts, natural disasters. Because again, it's not just energizing and working with our fields. If we're all connected, it's working on Earth as well. So natural disasters. Let's see, glass shattering, things breaking, again, physical tension. It's literally speeding up the molecules in the energy field, speeding up the energy. Huge revelations and truths, epiphanies, collective field trauma clearing. So it's, a lot of people are like not paying attention to the solar flares, and I'm like, are you out of your mind? Although being out of your mind, again, can be a good thing. So bad phrase, but you get the point. I'm trying to hurry because there's just so much to cover here. So how to benefit and integrate and work with these amazing cosmic energies. I mean, this sounds terrible, right? Like all this list of symptoms, but it's basically the mass awakening, the mass purge. This is your triggers are your treasures is a great phrase. You know, noticing what you're noticing, this is a great opportunity to come back home to our physical vessel. And if you're trying to be on, well, I don't love the word trying, if you are on the ascension path, the spiritual awakening journey, this is going to quantum leap you, and it's going to ask you to do, the last thing you have to do is your physical embodiment. If you're going up here and getting all this yummy wisdom, but you can't bring it into your physical vessel, which is where you are now, it's not fully embodied. You are also susceptible to more emotions, to more karma, to your field is not fully fortified, I'll say. So this is going to help you do that. It's going to help you lose density, and also it's going to just keep poking you until you come back home to you and deal with what's there, what's bubbling up. So it's a juicy time. And if you can look at it as a benefit, that's the first wonderful step, is that shift in your mindset. So being with what is, that's great advice. Being present in your micro moments, coming back home to your physical body. Self-love. How quickly can you forgive yourself for anything or anyone really, but also keeping in mind some good healthy boundaries. Being love, literally going throughout your day, being love, being, you know, a person of increase, I like to say. Understanding everything is working out for you. So even if the solar flares are making you have the ascension flu, guess what? That's a breakthrough. As soon as you burn that off, it's literally your body burning off density. So yay! I know it kind of sucks in the moment, but if you can find a way to understand that every single thing is alchemy and every single thing is for you as a part of your contract here on Earth, there is a lot less suffering and a lot more flow, and a lot more magic, just to say. I could tell you some things. They affect people differently depending on many factors, their groundedness, how they tune in with their body, their dharma, their density, their frequency. So it's really important to drink a lot of high quality water that's still alive. Listen to your body physically and emotionally, because sometimes you're going to have emotional triggers, you know, where like anxiety is actually an emotional trigger. Thyroid, throat issues, that is not standing fully in your power, and or you are an alchemist, which I assume in the case of our friend that's going to speak next, is that she's a master alchemist and she's a priestess who's had a lot of persecution here in the past from suppressing her gifts. And right now, guess what we're exactly working on in this cycle? we are working on alchemizing the priestess persecution codes. So I literally had a 0 point on this yesterday, and I speculate because my higher self knew across space and time I was going to be with you today. We did a little work on that probably yesterday. So sorry, not sorry. Baking soda baths. Again, specifically baking soda, because it pulls out rather than putting in, whereas Epsom salts put in to your body. Shadow work, light diving, again, asking yourself, go into that part of your body. What have you been feeling? You know, what am I missing? What am I resisting? And we like what questions, not how, what, and just being really grace for yourself. Infrared saunas are epic, detoxing. Visit your holistic wellness friends and practitioners. Go do EES systems. I highly recommend the medical medium radiation exposure brain shot therapy. You can find that right online. And when I have a second, I'm not speaking a million miles a minute to get it all in, I'll put a link in the chat. Let me see. I think I'm almost there. I've got a few resources for you that you can follow. You can follow me to find out what's going on in the cosmic weather. You can also, and I also give like recipes, and I give what is the collective theme? How does this relate with the astrology? What most of my clients are feeling. And also I download this through my channel, my connection to consciousness. So I often will have my experience, I'll know when it's incoming. So before the solar flare has even happened, I've often received the download, what it's going to be, what it's going to target, what the collective field will most likely experience, what we'll see in the news. It's pretty nuts, but whatever, that's what's on, I like to say. So there's some resources. Again, you can follow me. I love Schumann Resonance with Marguerite on Facebook. She's amazing, and I'll put these in the chat as well. Sarah Star Official on TikTok and Instagram is amazing, and Stefan Burns on YouTube. And this has just happened. I wouldn't say I'm a scientist or that I'm an expert or ever was intending on being that on solar flares, but through being in the consciousness and being fully connected with unified field, for whatever reason, here I am. I'm a massive empath. I feel it all. Nothing rarely gets by me. So these other people are really more of what I would call experts. They will talk the tech, they'll talk the science, they'll show you charts and graphs, which make my eyes glaze over. But I'm really good at taking it and putting it in layman's terms. What does this mean for you? Taking it out of numbers, KP, 7, bleep, bloop, blop, bloop, bleep, and saying, this is how you might be feeling. This is what you can do. So there you go.
Liz, you do it with so much charm, so much love. And we're going to move on. We'll bring Liz back. But here's the question I'm going to ask you, Liz, when you come back on. Because you are very good at taking big stuff and making it digestible for us mere mortals. So the question I'm going to ask you to share with people is to help people understand timelines. You know, you mentioned a few times about solar flares can change timelines. And so, you know, some of the people here are familiar with timelines and what that means, but other people might not be. And certainly a lot of the people watching on Facebook and YouTube who just kind of found us are like, so that's going to be the first question I'll have for you.
Very good. All right. So I'll try and make this micro size. It's kind of a big topic, but because as Dr. Kat said, everything is happening all at once through space and time. Now, that said, we can still experience where our physical being is. So, for example, and some of us, because we are multidimensional, and that's another thing I encourage you all to move into, is that I am a multidimensional being, and what I'm seeing and experiencing here is not the full picture. This is an amazing way to give yourself grace on days you're feeling tired or scattered-brained, realizing that you might be doing some pretty cool stuff somewhere else, and probably you are. So you start to think like a superhero and less like, I'm little old me in this body having an experience, because you're all doing amazing things. Just even to have a body and be on this planet right now, you got to be kind of amazing, okay? So just take that in right now. So I move through space and time, and I luckily have enough, I've cultivated enough consciousness and enough connection with the field and enough presence where I can notice, because I've trained myself to get out of my mind and be in the cosmic heart and to be in the micro minutes. I notice every little thing. So I began to notice what I'll equate it to frequency differences, energetic differences, where you can just feel a frequency change. And I also started to notice synchronicities. So things that would happen, like, for me, it's an ambulance going off. If I hear an ambulance noise, chances are there's been a collective timeline shift. And I can feel it. Like, I can feel it. And I've started to learn string theory, like literally living string theory, and what that looks like and what the steps are in the cycles to kind of even know when they're coming, especially for the collective. And so, to put it there, you have simultaneous timeline versions of you, and it's infinite. Everything's infinite. And everything already exists now. So that's why people can go into the Akashic records and tell you your business, everything your soul's ever done and probably is likely to do. Although I have differing opinions about that and where we can actually create a new, but that's a whole different talk. And so because of that, you can tap into different timeline versions of you, and you can be in those different timeline versions of you. And when you're consciously doing it, it's almost as if you're sitting back inside your body, versions of your experience. So you can start to observe it, and there will be different energies, different versions of the people around you. And I'm so in tune, I'll know this is an older version of that person that I'm currently experiencing. Like, I've experienced, and I can know all the frequencies of them. So it takes some work, but this is what my coaching does. I train people on how to live this way. And yeah, things might disappear. Like, I can have nail polish on, and then 5 minutes later, there is no nail polish on. And I know, well, I'm in a different timeline. So again, we all have this capability, but it's not an easy path. There's some things you gotta let go of. It's almost constant. But the other thing is, so think of The Matrix, the movie in The Matrix. Not sure if anyone remembers it, but I encourage you to go rewatch it. When he goes to the end and there's this chairman sitting there and he shows him all the screens, all the times I've been waiting for you. You've been here before. And that's what deja vu is. It's when you've done the final thing. You've literally tried all the things across all the infinite versions of you, and you finally absorbed the lesson. Done it the highest heart resonance with the most self-love, and you have not fractalized your timelines. And the meaning of life is living in your true authenticity with full love and zero judgment, in full flow and full surrender to your deja vu. So you connect and pull all the timelines together, and you have an epiphany. Now, when you jump dimensions, you might experience deja vu for like 12 hours. It is outstanding. It's outstanding. So this is living string theory, and it's a big talk all on its own. So I will stop there. But I do work across all sorts of timelines with my clients. So when they work with me, they're not just getting this timeline version of me working on this timeline version of them. They're getting me working across all timeline versions of them. So they'll say, I've seen you in my dreams and blah, 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 blah. It's kind of epic. Anyway, there you go. I'll leave it at that.
Great stuff. And Liz, of course, we'll be back during our Q&A section. Thank you, Liz. It was great. And For those of you who watch like Marvel Cinema Universe, MCU movies, there's a lot of multidimensional reality in the MCU. They're really bringing it in, alternate timelines, alternate realities. I won't go into my stories, but I've actually literally experienced alternate Scott that made a different choice, and it was amazing. So and without drugs, by the way, that experience did not include to be clear. So yeah, for those of you who have experienced your multidimensional self, really experiencing a past life, a future life, an alternate you, maybe in a lucid dream, maybe in waking up in a different universe or a different part of you, put those in the chat box. Ayada has had some. So thank you, Ayada, for putting that in there. This is a lot to digest. Now we've got Rianna Skywalker coming up, but we're going to take our little second break, and we're going to have our second Omashar song. We also want to do a little prayer, because obviously we do have a lot of friends that have been impacted by the first hurricane, and we're concerned about those who will be impacted by the one that's coming in tonight. So, Brother Omashar, do you prefer to do the prayer and then your song, or your song and then the prayer?
Let's do the prayer now. Let's do the prayer now.
Okay. So I'm gonna go to gallery view and invite all of us just to kind of drop into our multidimensional selves. And let's hold the highest timeline for healing on the planet. For those who have been impacted by Hurricane Helene, to get maximum grace and support, and for Hurricane Milton to be gentle and diminish as quickly as possible with a minimum of loss of life. So maximum grace for all. And those of you watching on Facebook and all of our broadcast partners, please join us. Tuning into your highest self, your God self, your healer self, your earth angel self. Maximum grace for our world. Maximum grace for the southern part of the United States. Thank you. I'm going to turn over to Omashar.
which the world can come to drink. An ocean went together, and with one mind we think, as we walk on earth, we're building an eternity. Now all can see the way back home again, bridging heaven and earth. Oh. We walk the path together, and hand in hand we grow, as we walk on earth, we're building an eternity. Now all can see the way back home again, bridging heaven and earth. Oh.
Thank you, Omashar, and thank you, Lynn. I had the spotlight on you the entire time, so you were our featured dancer tonight. And it's just wonderful to watch you moving and grooving and dancing to Omashar's music. Thank you both so very, very much. Well, I am really excited about, isn't tonight's show wonderful? I mean, these two women that we've already heard are amazing, but wait, there's more. I am so happy that Rianna Skywalker agreed to come onto the show as well. She is a wise woman. She did an extraordinary reading for me, and she's going to help us really understand the age of wisdom, and Mayan blueprints, and the role that we all have in what she's calling the shift of the ages. So with no further ado, and I know that she's been having a little bit of a throat thing, so if she needs to take a little break, drink some water, we will absolutely give her whatever space she needs. But welcome to the Awakening World, Rianna.
Thank you for having me. Hopefully, I'll be able to talk without coughing, but there, we'll see how it goes. It was rather lovely that Lynn is having a birthday today, and then I checked if, Lynn, is your year of birth 1944? Is that right? Yes? Well, you are a magnetic wizard, so this age of wisdom that we're in is precisely what you're all about. So it's lovely that you were feeling what I suggested was coming up for the year ahead. So to tie in with what the previous two speakers, which were wonderful, talking my language around energy and the quantum field and timelines and what exactly is going on at this time, because it is obviously palpably a very exciting moment in our human evolution, and one that quite possibly we've never actually been at the precipice of before. Even though all timelines exist, there is something else happening about, I have to try and stop that buzzing sound, which I thought was switched off, forgive me. Coming back to, yes, all timelines exist. That's right, she is 1944. All timelines exist, but we have powered up a new dimension of reality because the experiment of consciousness was to incarnate and experience and expand in that experience. However, in that experiment, there was some distortion that occurred where we got stuck in a realm of polarity that turned into duality. And we are at that event horizon to move through into another level of consciousness that is not a polarity consciousness, that it is a trinity consciousness, which is the consciousness of love, which both of the previous speakers have spoken to. And that is the key, but really comprehending love from that level is something that we can't really talk about, but we could connect to as an energy. So everything is energy, and the calendar that I'm working with mostly, I sort of fell into astrology when I was a teenager and fell in love with it, and then over the years combined different systems together, sort of trying to crack the code of reality and see it from different perspectives. And I have a very architectural mind. I studied law and architecture, and so looking at blueprints in terms of astrology allowed me to sort of open up into the field of all-knowing that the previous two speakers were speaking about, which is the dream field, that is the field that is basically giving a rise to everything. And we are the dreamers of ourselves. And one of the systems I fell in love with was the dream spell, which is connected to the Mayan calendar, but in specifically the Tzolk'in calendar, which is a 260-day calendar that is speaking about energy. So archetypes are energies, and then each of these archetypes have frequencies, and the way that they interplay with each other, and then also how we can see where we are in time. Because one of the disconnecting forces that have occurred on this realm that we're in, or that our attention is keeping us locked into, is this disconnect with natural time. So disconnect with cosmic time. So the calendar doesn't relate to the actual time. And because we don't know where we are in time and space, we are kind of lost. And that's why the calendar is quite a beautiful gift for us, because the Mayans, obviously, the ancient Mayans are definitely ascended into their multidimensional selves and left us this code to crack the matrix of reality that we find ourselves in. And that's where we are right now. So in 2019, in the summer of 2019, so the Mayan galactic calendar begins in July, on the 26th of July, and that's because there's an alignment with our sun and our spiritual sun, Sirius, and they are conjunct at the horizon at the break of day in the east. And so that's why that calendar begins then. And the Egyptian calendar, which obviously was a connection with the Mayan as well, also begins around about that time. But January 1st is also connected to Sirius, because that's when Sirius is at the midday point at midnight. So when we're celebrating midnight, we're actually in opposition. So it's kind of an interesting sort of dark wizard play, which is, where we are at the moment in time, like waking up to how knowledge has been distorted as a manipulation to disconnect us from the field of all-knowing that reconnects us to the divine plan, which we are all agents of. So the calendar is a beautiful way to slip out of this distorted matrix and actually get the clues from our hologram, the field around us. There is a biofeedback from us to our hologram, and then we can get our clues of the moment and understand what we are here to do in this moment and how to step into the fullness of our being in this moment. So in the summer of 2019, we started a generational wave in White Wizard. And actually, Lynn was born as White Magnetic Wizard, which is quite awesome. So we entered what I call the Age of Wisdom. Just a few years before then, on January 1st, we went into a white mirror age, which is the age of truth. So we're in two waves, sort of waves of energy moving through consciousness that we are receiving and interplaying with, and they are truth and wisdom. And it's basically aligning us with a higher vibration, a higher dimension of wisdom that we know on a cellular level as truth, which is why there may be a little bit of a bumpy ride as we let go of the distortions that have projected into this reality and onto us, and we're projecting onto reality, and come into phase with a different vibration that will allow us to see through the illusion into the truth of reality, which is a coherent field that is taking us to a new experience of being embodied without the polarity, without the separation, without the forgetfulness of who we are and who everyone is and what the opportunity of the moment is bringing, because each moment is a portal. Each moment is offering us an opportunity to elevate in consciousness, elevate in vibration, and therefore connect to a timeline, or as I prefer to say, collapsing all other timelines that are not resonant with love. So that's a little bit about the Mayan calendar and why it's kind of really speaking to this time. I think that no other system, even though I work with lots of other systems, really had the ability to see that 2020 was going to be a reality-shaking event. And in the same way, we have now entered into another very significant year for reality-shaking event. Literally, we are in a storm, which is quite intense because we are experiencing these storms in the physical, but it's an invitation to receive the solar storm from our spiritual sun, to remember who we are and how it is we influence reality. So there's a lot of things that are creating our experiences, but as we connect to a different level of seeing, then we can remember our power to influence reality with consciousness and embodiment. So we talked about the sun and solar energies, and then also we talked about the water, which is also a key aspect because it is the merging of the light and the water that gives rise to our experience and our embodiment. And we are wanting to bring in this higher frequency of light, but it's meeting the memories held in the body that we need to let go of. And so this year is going to be quite powerful in that regard, because we are in a blue rhythmic storm galactic year. And storm represents energy. And in the cosmology that I'm working with, it represents the regenerative force of energy, that everything is energy, and energy just simply wants to move into an experience, a creation, a thought form, but also then move back. And unfortunately, we've got a little bit attached to keeping things the same. And we're a little afraid of the storm and the fluidity of reality. We are having to open up to allowing that fluidity to occur, to realize that we exist in a field of love that has the best intentions, that are our intentions when we remember who we are. So I find the calendar is offering us a window into not seeing this reality in quite the pessimistic way that has been portrayed. There are narratives projected into the reality that capture our consciousness and then affect the water in our body, and then we are then magnetizing a timeline where those narratives turn into our reality, whereas the calendar is inviting us to see through that narrative into a more alive universe that is, how do you say, biofeedbacked, responding to us in the moment at our point of consciousness, and then each moment giving us a route back to source, which is the vibration of love, which is the center of the calendar. And actually, January 1st next year, we will go into a galactic Skywalker year in the wave of love. So we're going to combine this rhythmic storm, which is basically, rhythmic is the energy of balancing the yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine, the light and the dark, and it is the magical ingredient of being a wizard, is to understand how to meet energy as it is and then move it through the heart to align with where it wants to go, so that it's freed of the distortions of the mind that we've got conditioned into thinking in certain ways, to just drop the mind, as our previous speakers spoke to, drop the mind that has been programmed and enter into the heart space and allow that frequency to anchor the timeline, the highest timeline that we could experience. And as a Skywalker in the cosmology, we are, my soul group are called the Ancient Elders from the Future. So we already, some of us here have already experienced this timeline, and we have it resonant in our cellular memory. And we are remembering the codes that free us from the illusion that we're separate and that we do not have a powerful influence on our experience and our reality. So we are the dream of ourselves, and we are in a dream field, and we're learning and we're awakening to, at this time in this spiritual age, the spiritual technology, which is being called science, and now science and spiritual technology are coming into phase with each other, and there's no separation between them. And we realize from quantum physics that our observation is creating reality. So how do we purify how we observe what is arising so that it can reflect a higher choice point, a higher consciousness point? And the calendar that we're working with, or I'm working with, is speaking to this dawning of the sixth sun. So there's a sixth sun consciousness, which you could call 6D consciousness. And when we access that, that's the space of the unified field consciousness, where there is no separation. We haven't forgotten who we are. And from that space, we can experience a completely different reality, which is probably very hard for us to even imagine. To even imagine being totally seen, totally known, and that every experience that anyone has ever had, we have also had. And all that's left when we collapse all of that is love, because we're embracing it all in the space of knowing, which is truth and light. And that actually, from a certain dimension of seeing, nothing ever happened because we never really left that unified field. It is just an illusion of experience. However, there is light that has gone into the field to create experience. And as we have become attached and dense, holding on to these memories and holding on to viewpoints of separation, then that light has got caught up. And so this is a time of freeing Storm is about freeing consciousness from its attachments, from its beliefs that are creating certain realities, and bringing it all back to the heart space where there are no visions, there are no thoughts. It's just a feeling of connection that is bliss. And we are resting in that space to be reborn in a new form that will be a completely different experience.
Wow. I so enjoy listening to all three of you speak. And Rianna, there's something you referenced at the very beginning that I want to ask you about. Because we were just talking about this. I had a meeting with some of the evolutionary leaders, and we were talking about the bifurcation or the possible splitting off into different dimensions. And the conversation led to the Mayans. And many believe that, from an archaeological standpoint, we know that they were here and then they were just gone. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, it would appear to me, from the way that I've worked with the materials that they have left us, is that they figured out, they remembered that they were multidimensional beings, and all they needed to do was awaken the consciousness that connected them to a dimension of experience, and they no longer had to be in this duality consciousness. Now, the way that I see it is that everybody is going to get to the event horizon, and there is no thing, time doesn't really exist. It's an illusion, a construct. So the idea that people will be on different timelines is a kind of illusion, but it's the experiences that soul wants to go through in order to reclaim the light of its ancestors, in order to extract that light from this dimension. The way that I see it is that this dimension no longer really needs to exist. It has too many problems leading to all of the situations that we experience. We've created a lot of energy in this dimension that has been used to create another dimension of experience. And now we just are dialing up our consciousness to access that dimension. And obviously everybody has got their own point of view and point of resonance that will lead them to their different journey through that dimensional shift. But the Mayans must have accessed this sixth sun, which is what they speak to. And the calendar is a journey of how it is we move through all these archetypal energies in order to access that sixth sun consciousness, through which then we have the free will to move to the dimension of our heart's resonance, which may take us to different dimensions, because obviously we are all star beings from maybe different systems. We have different soul family groups that might lead us to different places. I know that I have a strong connection with the Pleiades. I recently went to Sardinia. I was called there and had some interesting experiences at some of the temples there, where they were obviously a very advanced civilization that were creating temples to bring in the codes from the Pleiades into the spring water that were in the land there, almost like a craniosacral on the earth into the land. So there's all of this wisdom that we have in the field, because we have been all these different beings at different times. We are at this really exciting point of connecting back in to all of that information, to then apply it to what we're dealing in the now. And what we're dealing with in the now is the effects of all the separation. But the Mayans definitely are leaving a little bit of a, what's that word, like a treasure hunt of clues for us to remember who we are, to individuate at this point, like who did we come in to be? Like archetypally, I came in as a cosmic Skywalker. And I was delighted, of course, because I was a Star Wars fan when I was younger. But obviously that was my hologram reflecting me. So that was a journey for me to, connect with what exactly is our divine blueprint. So Skywalker is the 13th archetype that comes after human and precedes wizard. So I'm sandwiched between those two. So I'm the bridge between humanity and reclaiming its wisdom, its cosmic wisdom of the bigger picture of who we are, so that we can elevate our experience. And so I then step into the role of, similarly to previous speaker, being a guide and helping others to remember who they are and to step into their gifts at this time, so that we can all come together to break through the matrix of illusion and anchor the timeline, because obviously there are other forces that are trying to anchor different timelines because they have different agendas, driven by fear and power and control and other energies. But all of those are reflections of our own energies, because it is an inside-outside job always. And so it's just a point of clarifying our consciousness and clarifying our vibration, and realizing there is this cosmic picture, there is this portal that's opened, and so therefore the cosmic pressure cooker, as a previous speaker mentioned too, is really sort of there for us to awaken in each moment and access our gifts in each moment, and at that very time also to release any density and any distortion that we have got in our field that we signed up to clear up based on our ancestors, and also on our point of interest in our individual journey. So yes.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I'm going to bring all of our speakers on for this kind of last segment, because this is Q&A time. And there are some questions I have. There's some questions that are coming from the audience, but I also want to open up to any of the three of you, if any of you have questions for your fellow speakers here. So feel free if there's something you want to ask about, because you're all wise women with great information. And one of our audience members said that each of you could be an entire show, and I agree. You have so much to offer. And I want to acknowledge Connie and Andrew are back with us. They are teaching the Trust Frequency Rianna in Sedona. They're traveling the country, and they're teaching this wonderful thing called the Trust Frequency. And they're going to be in Sedona at the Sedona Quantum Consciousness something or another. Anyway, so welcome, Connie and Andrew.
Hi, Rianna. Wonderful. Love hearing you, and all you're bringing is just so aligned with everything we see and know. And sorry, we missed the others presenters, but you're beautiful. Thank you.
And I love that the trust is a very interesting frequency for us to get into, isn't it? It's a beautiful portal to open.
The trust frequency work is great. It's really is recognizing that when we go into trust and we are in alignment with the quantum field that Dr. Cat really helped us to understand. So, Dr. Cat, I'll ask a question for you first, but any of you are welcome to ask each other questions. And likewise, Omashar, if you have a question as well. Cat, when we spoke, you talked about putting attention here on the chest, and that's helping you personally to cultivate this awareness. Would you be willing to share a little bit more about that with our audience?
Well, so, my experience is who we are is really this fourth state of consciousness. right? Our brain or our mind is not in our head. It's everywhere. So if you try to find, so the shift, the ultimate shift in my mind is from realizing we're a human, or from thinking we're the human, to identifying as the human, to understanding ourselves as bodies of consciousness. So it's just like a dream. You think you're the dream self, but the dream self is really manifesting in your consciousness, right? When you have a dream at night, you're not that body that you experience in the dream. You are the entire field of the dream. And that is the same thing here too. So that shift, you are already at right now. We're just identifying as the limited self, the small self. So by putting our awareness, dropping our awareness down into the heart, and simultaneously feeling the field all around you, you activate it, and it becomes more alive, because we're not limited to this physical body. All this space out here is us. And by placing in my experience, placing my attention on it makes it more alive. I literally feel waves of energy, and it feels like the universe is alive, like the trees breathe, and the air bounces, and the sidewalks bounces, and I feel all this energy like moving through my body. Now, that didn't all happen at once. I mean, I did have an episode where I did have an amazing experience, and I felt like a light being. And after that, I was able to feel energy. But it's progressed to not only just feeling the space around me, feeling the energy out here, but also feeling the vacuum come out of the heart. I can feel this field energy come out of the heart. It's really beautiful, but I had to keep placing my attention on it. I had to keep putting my awareness on it. And I would literally walk around the world and I would say, this is happening inside of me. I would, when we wake up in a dream at night, we call that lucid dreaming, right? And if any of you lucid dream, you might agree that when you wake up in the dream reality feels different. And you actually can make things happen in the dream. Well, we can do that here too. It's just that we don't believe that we're in a dream. We were taught out of understanding this physical world as a dream. And just like in the dream world, when you dream at night, it's responding to you because it actually is you. You're not the physical dream. You're not the body in the dream. You're the container. So when you believe you're the dream self in the dream, then everything feels real. But when you wake up in the dream, then things become more malleable. And it's the same here too. It's just that there's a delay. We have to kind of work for it here. And then we also have a collective consciousness that is, like Rianna said, we're all like holding things in place. So I think what I've noticed is the more I place my attention on it, the more it becomes alive. But also when I relax my mind, then things like when I relax my human consciousness, so just this area of myself, and allow myself to relax, I feel more of the energy. But also, so what's happening there is I'm allowing things to vibrate. I'm allowing things to be the energy that they actually are. And so I think, Rianna was talking a lot about this. I mean, we all collectively are holding things in place, right? So we expect things to happen a certain way. And therefore, because the reality is responding to us, they do. So relaxing our understanding of what reality actually is and let things change. If we don't keep expecting the worst possible outcome, we won't produce it. So, and when you come into, awareness of your heart and awareness of yourself as the container of the dream of life, when you are in that space, and if you can learn, the more and more you practice it, the more and more you can stay there. And then because the field, when you're connected to the field, because the field is the mind of the universe, you're connecting with that information. So you start operating from those principles. So things change. I think your understanding of reality and of yourself changes. And I think that's the transformation that we're all going through.
Beautiful. Rianna just wrote, the dream spell of awakening from the dream of forgetfulness. I've got a question for you, Liz, that actually came in from Sylvia. Sylvia asked, is there, let me go back and find it. Well, Susan Woolridge wrote 3 incredible women, and yes, I agree with that. Sylvia asks, is there a dimensional practice that we might collectively share?
A dimensional practice. Well, I guess I'm going to go to the most important thing to learn in my experience of consciousness. And this will serve you in everything, every single practice or way of living, is that the key to it all, the real mastery, is
I'm asking for a practice that we can share right now with each other.
Oh, to do something right now, physically? Well, I mean, yeah. I would say we stop what we're doing. We stop any thoughts. We go into our heart and consider what if I was infinite? And, and I could be and do anything and everything that I ever dreamed. I could express anything and everything with no outcomes. I could literally move mountains. I could manipulate weather. I could literally do everything magical you could ever imagine. And literally, if we all just spent a minute or two in that space and having that be the space we play in versus the alternative, we begin to get there. We begin to start creating anew and taking our power and our life force out of creating these other type of timelines. A lot of what we've been trained to do or programmed to do or egoically are doing up until now, I like to use my words very consciously, and I hold space for this to change, universe, is again, like the last speaker said, focusing on worst case scenarios and what we don't want instead of what we do want. In my coaching, I often ask people, what would you love? And they often can't even tell me like what their dreams are without limitations. They're not even able to have that. So we could all do that now for a minute if you want. In fact, a great thing to do would be to focus on the idea, the belief, the news, the timeline that's, again, time doesn't exist. The timeline of this hurricane. If we all just meditate on it and took our energy out of it and said it's not going to happen and believed it, it wouldn't happen. So we could do that.
I first of all, thank you, Sylvia, and thank you, Liz, for following the flow. And yeah, I'll leave it up to you, but I like the first thing where we all just imagine that we can do anything. So let's make that our collective imagining. Okay, we all just imagine. I'm going to go to gallery view.
And it's really important to not limit yourself. The universe likes to reward the bigger the better. And really paint it. Give us the movie theater version in your mind. details, emotions, the more you paint it, the more life force, the more your RAS can glomp onto it.
Sure feels good, doesn't it, everybody? Wow. I don't think in the entire history of the show I've ever had that prolonged period of silence, but it felt really wonderful as we all imagined. I was imagining myself as the world's greatest shortstop. Curious what other people were imagining, but mine was selfish. Sorry, I had a selfish one. I wasn't imagining no hurricanes. Rianna, question for you, and then I'm gonna ask all of you a little bit about how we can get more of your different offerings. But Rianna, what would be a good way for people to kind of learn about their Mayan calendar name and thing? Do you offer coaching in that way?
I do. Bring it into the readings. I do sort of multi-dimensional readings using lots of different systems, but the one that I fell in love with the most was this one. And quite coincidentally, in 2021, I heard from someone who was spending their 2020 lockdown in England doing their genealogy. And actually, one of my ancestors was one of the first Mayanists who drew the glyphs and said it was a language and different things like that. So I kind of feel like I have a connection to him in bringing that through. So yes, I kind of orientate people to, you know, their blueprints. This is your owner manual and who you came to be, and therefore, and then where you are right now on that journey, so that you can optimize the cosmic potential of the moment, and to be evolve into the best human vessel of spirit as we are in this moment now, and to understand the different relationships that we have with people and how that are coming together creates a certain bit of magic. I'd be really curious to see what are the four of us on screen now, our individual archetypes are, and therefore the portal to the field that we open together. So yes, you can have a reading with me and find out who you came to be, who you are now, what this year ahead is, and so also then how to begin being connected to the calendar on a daily basis so that you know the energy signature of the day and then your energy signature, and therefore what those two coming together optimize. Because obviously there's a lot going on, and our point of attention, which is something we've all brought up, is very important. And so in this world of distraction, how do we focus on what is meaningful? And the calendar allows us to do that because it sort of is a lens that's focusing, putting you in the where you are now in time and what the cosmic potential of the moment is, and therefore how you can dance with it. Because then, of course, we can enter a state of trust that we're in the right place at the right time and we know how to engage with the energy.
All right, beautiful. Well, you can find Rianna on the website, which is mayanmystic.com. Mayanmystic.com, and learn all about the wonderful work that she does, retrieving soul blueprints, reconnecting us with the truth of who we really are. And you can learn more about her offerings, her soul readings, her self-mastery monitoring, even sacred embodiment breath work. This is how you can contact her.
And then
So,
you can come to Sedona on a retreat, which is always nice.
and you do personal retreats for people.
That's right, right. And I'm about to create a space to go deeper into the dream field. So dark room retreats where we go and sit in the dark and awaken our ability to see into the field and engage with the dream field. And I'm looking for the, there's a word for it, but I can't get it quite right. It's not cosmonaut, but there's a dream naut of some sort. It's a Greek word. I'll try to remember what it is. For us to go into the dream field and to clear up any of the distortions that we've left planted there, and then get out into the pure potentiality that we were connecting to a few moments ago, to then see what was already star-seeded and what we want to see manifest. So that's going to be the next project that is coming into being here in Sedona.
Well, that's all vision being in Sedona at your amazing, soon-to-be retreat site. That's going to be amazing, amazing. And many of us are going to be in Sedona in November for our retreat. So many of us will get a chance to meet you at that time.
Oh, wonderful.
Dr. Kat has her hand up.
I was curious, Rianna, do you feel like when you meet people, you can kind of guess what?
Oh, yes, I can sort of feel their soul group, which is kind of made up of 4 archetypes that connect to the elements. So I might not, and then obviously I might feel like who they are now and not get necessarily their natal glyph, but I often can tell when someone's in my soul family because I can feel that energy.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to do the cards. Do you know, like the deck of cards? Do you know about the deck of cards? Does anyone
The
know?
oracle deck of the
No,
dream,
not the oracle deck, just the regular deck of cards.
which is called, is it called the destiny cards? Is
Yeah,
that
the
what-
destiny. I mean,
That's right, yes,
yeah,
yes.
but it's basically just the deck of cards, but
Mhm.
it is it's similar to the Mayan calendar, is my understanding.
I
That
think lots of systems do dovetail. I think when truth is truth, then it sort of can
yes,
present itself in different ways, but when you track it all back, they all sort of come into a coherence.
mhm,
And so yes, the tarot is reflected in the calendar, and then obviously playing cards are a sort of type of tarot. And then of course we have numerology, which is frequencies as well. So there's a lot. And then of course the suites being archetypal energies. Yeah, so yeah, it's all infinitely connected, and they all provide us sort of divinatory tools to sort of remember the magic of who we are.
but I thought it was interesting because I could, after working with them for some time, I could tell when I would meet somebody new, I could kind of feel
Yes.
what their card was, or at least what suit, if it was like a diamond or a heart person or a club person or a spades person. And that was fun.
When you're tapping into the field, of course, then of course we access knowingness without having sort of to like study it, you know, so we get those intuitive hits, which is the inner wisdom that is connecting us to the field. So I'm sure you probably have like maybe a sense, I don't know which one of your senses is stronger, but maybe vision. I was just picturing you immediately seeing, you know, could you guess me?
I don't know. I haven't tried. I haven't been feeling into it, but
Yeah. Well, I will visualize my my card, and leave it in the field for you.
Okay.
A fun game. I felt like we could have lots of fun games together. I have a lot of questions, but they're really really long. I feel like they'd be long, soulful answers from you too. So I definitely love to talk offline.
Yes.
But, one thing that I was curious on that same topic is when you meet people. So what I find is I see all the timeline versions of them. I kind of download that all as one packet. And what sources really challenged me to master over the past year is not holding on to this version of them if they didn't choose to step into that version. And that was a really difficult lesson for a massive bleeding heart empath.
Yeah.
And to learn the lesson that sometimes you have to, and we constantly are trying to not be attached to outcomes, right? That's part of the mastery. And I use the word trying, don't love it, but we're shedding that, right? Shedding that. But I would love to hear how that, if that's like
definitely had that experience too, and obviously you've got Oracle in your, and I learned that, had a big download. I had quite an interesting experience here in Sedona. I'll be going out on hikes and I'll be transported into the future, or just another timeline. And I got a message because I had been obviously working with certain client and I can see their timeline potentials, and then I'm sort of steering them or helping them, and having to sort of realize that even though our point of the way that we might see something is as their best timeline is not necessarily what their soul wanted them to go through. So even though they might need to go through a certain experience that you might be trying to steer them to avoid, they may still need to go down that timeline. And it's, I got a message that what it looks like in this dimension is not indicative of what's really happening on all dimensions. There's certain catalyst points that occur here, and then it doesn't look like it went in a very good direction, but actually that catalyst lit up something in another dimension that is going. So then it's just like there's no judgment.
Yeah, and I love how you use the word catalyst, because that's exactly what I say. I say it's like kicking the baby bird out of the nest is sometimes the perfect thing that has them reflect and go into the whatever the loss or whatever it happened to be was the catalyst to jump them into the higher version of themselves. So this is why when we just live in flow and we understand that everything is working out for us, it all just is alchemy and it's perfect.
Yes, exactly. Trusting that I can breathe into this experience and that there is various levels of higher dimensions of self that is able to hold this experience, even though our human may be feeling like I cannot hold this experience, and breathe through it and allow it to, wash us up on the shore of a new way of seeing reality. So absolutely, which is why, the storm precedes a new dawn, a new awakening. We have to stir things up and things get a little messy, and then suddenly we see things differently, like the hanged man. We're hanging upside down and we have an aha moment. So every moment has that potential, and we just have to manage that, the human density version of it, whilst also expanding to the spiritual perspective of it, and then just slowly bringing those together so that we don't feel it so turbulently.
Well, and when clients come in a huff about some circumstance, I say, well, let's say it's about a job, or whatever, and I'm like, well, would you ever have left this job if this circumstance hadn't have happened? Even though you've been complaining in our last 5 sessions about how it's not in alignment, right? So it's sometimes the chess pieces get moved so that you will move.
And of course, their attention has created that because they've been unhappy. So something
Right?
is,
We do it all.
happening. Yeah, so exactly.
All us.
So Liz, do you actually see, how do you see these different timelines? Is it just, do you actually visually see them, or do you just, is it just an understanding that happens as you're speaking to someone?
Both.
Mm.
I feel it. Sometimes I see it. Most times I will actually see it. Sometimes I actually physically experience it. And then I come back, and sometimes source will actually like disconnect phone calls or something if I'm talking about a timeline that that person doesn't remember. So a lot of times if you experience these communication issues where, you know, the person just has no recollection, and when you jump dimensions, this happens often, and sometimes it takes a certain number of times in a dimensional jump to embody it. And so you might have to do it between 3 and 5 times. And so the people you're rainbow bridging with, they will be in your deja vu, and you will be having the exact same conversations. And they won't remember having it before, but you'll remember the exact number of times, and that's how you know how many times it's taking you to anchor and embody that higher dimensional version of you and them, because you're bringing them energetically along. So anyway, it's pretty fun, but also crazy and intense.
What I've come to do is basically, yes, it's very important not to influence. So basically, if I contact something in the field, then like I suggested, holding the image of my destiny card, is that I will, stay connected to that timeline, that feeling of that timeline whilst I'm with my client. And if they are already accessing that on some level, some piece of that will come in, and then we can begin to engage with the piece they are able to receive. And then I know that is kind of permission to connect them with that information, because obviously I'm connecting with, and you too are connecting with, lots of things, and then not to interfere with the individuation, is to sort of connect with the field, but then also see what that individual is able to access whilst I'm holding that field closer to them, more vibrant for them to be able to tune into. For instance,
Kept dropping out, so I had to move over here.
For instance,
Not
picking
like dropping out, just like robotics.
children for clients that they haven't had yet, and things like that. So it's very interesting, and on the journey we just learn to support the individual to make those connections themselves by holding the field a little bit more closer to them, because we've accessed it.
So where do you guys think that so you're kind of helping people see this for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
How are you using it for yourself?
Well, it's interesting because obviously if you're acting with this retreat center that I've been having a desire to create one since 2007 that's gone through many iterations of my seeing it and where it is, and then realizing, well, it's happened on many timelines, but what really wants to happen now, and then how to sort of, like I said, step out of the realm of thought. So when we sort of see a timeline, we get information, that's sort of coming into consciousness. And then, of course, we might get really busy and fixated on creating that. But I now am coming into, okay, so I can see many things, but which one is the love timeline? Like, which one is, because that's the best one. It's the only way to know, because all the others could be all sorts of decisions and experiences that will have ripple effects on various different things. So the only one is to, try to anchor to what is the love vibration, and then what timeline does that want to create, and then allow myself to be a vessel for that to come through. So that's how I would use it myself.
That's really interesting because the love vibration is centered in the center of your vortex, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. And then that, to me, the way I think of it is that's the field where there's infinite potential.
Yes.
And so, and when you're centered here, you're also not resisting.
Yes.
So then it can manifest quicker.
Yeah,
It can,
because you're in love with your other selves, and then, you know, the source that has sent out a signal, a certain timeline of experience, which is the ultimate experience that we're here for. We want to have that ultimate coherent experience with each other, and we all carry a piece of that. And I think that's the opportunity, that's the tipping point of this year, to realize we're all energy masters, and how it is consciousness is influencing energy, and how energy can influence consciousness, and the interplay between the two.
can I share one more thing, Scott?
Yeah.
Yes,
of course.
and then we need to wrap up because
Okay.
I've got a client at 8:30 and we still have an
Oh,
song, and
okay.
I knew the three of you were going to hit off, and I'm right off the bat. Let's bring the three of you back, like in a month or 6 weeks or something, because I think the three of you just really complement each other beautifully. And of course, we'll add Anastara. No, welcome. There's Anastara, who we
Ah,
love. Another
she's not just in the
brilliant
chat
wise
somewhere.
one. So
I just wanted to say I was in Sedona, and it was for a Bashar event, and he told us to go to Bell Rock and
Yes.
hold hands and ohm into the rock, because he said the frequency that you put in will then determine what you get out. And he said if you put in ohm, if you ohm into the rock, I think he said something about you will get the frequency of like lucid dreaming, something like that. I could be wrong on that, but the experience is what I want to share. So we all gathered, there was a big group, maybe 15 to 20 of us, and we held hands and we all ohmed together. And we were precisely synchronized in our ohm. So the inhale, the ohm, and the exhale were all like precise. I felt like we became one being. And it was really amazing to feel that. Like I was still feeling it as me, but I was not just this individual self. I was the entire group. And it made me realize that Earth, that's what we are. We're one soul. So each one of us is like the cells of Earth, but we're behaving like we have cancer. And I think we're transitioning through that, but we're behaving independently. We're not behaving as a whole anymore. And that creates the disease that we're experiencing. But having that experience of being completely like at one with this group of people was so beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that. And I also would love for you to share, Dr. Kat, about what you're starting this Sunday morning. You're starting a new group, breathwork and meditations, Sundays at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's a good way to start. But get by 10, because sometimes we have a Sacred Sunday show. But tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it's about connecting more to the field. So really learn how to connect more to the field. And when you're in that state, you're really in the fourth state of consciousness. And what I think is important in doing this is to notice the differences. So I always try to point out, notice what's happening as you're connected to your heart and feeling in this expanded state. Like notice what it's doing to your mind, to your emotions, and to the physical body. So that way the cognitive mind or the conscious mind can cognize what's going on, and that it makes it easier to move between the different states of consciousness. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on. So I'll be doing breath work and then meditation. and then discussion, because I think the discussion, like what we've been doing tonight, is really important to help integrate these concepts into our psyche so that we can actually utilize them as we create our reality.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to
But
try.
yeah, thank you for mentioning that.
Now, is it an ongoing weekly?
Yeah, I'll do it ongoing. Right now I just said 4 Sundays because I'm just starting this, but it will be, my goal is to have it be ongoing because I think it's an important practice. We have to keep practicing these or we can't utilize this information. We have to recondition our minds and our bodies.
Well, I'm going to bring everybody up one last time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I will start a thread. Actually, I already started a thread with all of us. So let's find a date that we can all do another one, because I think you guys are going to be the new View, you know, that show, The View. You're like, you guys.
The quantum view.
The quantum
Yeah,
view,
that's right.
exactly.
That's good.
The cosmic view. Exactly. Thank you all very, very much for really your dedication to an awakening world, both literally and figuratively. And as always, we are going to close out with the Alpha and Omega Man, Mr. Omashar.
Quieter you become, the more you can hear in the silence, in the stillness. I am here. Through the wisdom of your tears, through your heartbreaks, through your breakthroughs, through the shedding of your fears. I am with you and guiding your way. Know that I am cheering you on. Truth lives within you and love leads us through. I love you. Now your heart and mind is clear, and you know that love is with you, love supports you, love is here. And you feel that you belong, and you know that you are walking with purpose. You can hear your life's new song. With you and guiding your way. Know that I am cheering you on. Meow. Truth lives within you and love leads us through. I love you. Ba 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 da ba ba ba, ba da 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 ba, da 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 da, da 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 da. Through the wisdom of your tears, through your heartbreaks, through your breakthroughs, through the shedding of your fears. Know that I am with you and guiding your way. Know that I am cheering you on. Truth lives within you and love leads us through. I love you. I love you.
We love Omashar. Thank you so much.
The in the field, I picked up the froggy throat. So yeah. Joie, joie, joie. It's gone.
Oh, it's fantastic. And thank you, Rianna. I'm delighted that your voice held out perfectly.
That was amazing. What an absolutely amazing show. I could not add to anything that these three incredible magi's have spoken with us tonight. We're not unbelievable, totally believable. We're on this path together. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved this show. And thank God we have an amazing show on Saturday night. So I want to make sure everybody knows about that, because you're going to hear from some of our favorite people. Greg Braden and Neil Donald Walsh, co-host Steve Farrell, Jude Curvin's video, and live with us, musical guests Fanny and Vigari will be joining Omashar to provide live music. So it's going to be a very, very special show this Saturday night. So make sure you join us.
Woohoo!
Yeah, that's a woohoo. But thank you again, Rianna, Dr. Kat, Liz, and of course, beloved Omashar, and all of you. And a big hello to those of you who watched the recording. I know a lot of people watched the recording of the show. And of course, hello to all of our friends watching on Facebook and our broadcast partners. Take care, everybody. Have a great couple days, and we will see you on Saturday night. Good night.